Welcome to FOXSOUL's Black Report. This is a space where we bring you Black America's headline news, views, and opinions. I'm Romeo.
Hey there, I'm Brooke.
I'm Demi, and on today's report, Texas Democrats stage a walkout to block the passage of a sweeping election overhaul package. Vice President Kamala Harris makes history again, and we'll let you know which HBCU just paid off all of their graduates' tuition.
We're going to show you why 11 Sheriff's Department employees have been fired in Texas. Find out why the University of North Carolina Chapel Hill may soon face legal action. Sadly, there's been another mass shooting, this time in Florida. And also, get ready for a big change at the post office.
Yes, we have all of that and so much more. So if you're ready, it's our voice and our truth. So let's get it.
Here are your headlines for the day. Democratic lawmakers in Texas have successfully blocked voting restrictions for now. State House Democrats walked off the State House floor late Sunday night, preventing the passage of a massive overhaul of state elections procedures. The Republican proposed bill would add new restrictions to voting in future elections and limit the availability of certain types of voting, predominantly used by low-income and disabled Texans. As The Hill reports, Senate Bill 7 had already passed the state's upper chamber and looked to be headed to Governor Greg Abbott's desk for his signature. The Texas Tribune reported Democrats appeared to be slowly leaving the floor throughout the night before the last remaining members of the party walked out around 10:30. This left the State House without enough members present for a quorum, meaning Republicans were not able to pass the bill before its midnight deadline. According to The Hill, independent researchers have already labeled Texas as one of the most difficult states to cast a ballot, and voter turnout there lags far behind other states that have more accessible voting rules. So much to talk about here. Just off top, Texas Governor Greg Abbott actually says he intends to withhold paychecks from lawmakers after this, specifically tweeting, "I will veto Article 10 of the budget passed by the legislature." Now, Article 10 funds the legislative branch. He says no pay for those who abandon their responsibilities. Stay tuned. The interesting thing is a lot of Democratic voters feel as if they were doing the opposite of abandoning their responsibilities. They feel they were standing up for those constituents. Also, just want to note that this could come back in special session if the governor chooses to revive this bill, in doing so, which he has also said he will do. One last thing that I just think is interesting facts, that this is only the fourth time ever in Texas history this is done. First time in 1870, second time in 1979, 2003. Also, Dems walked out over redistricting. So it's interesting.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Very, very interesting. Brooke, like you said, I mean, we could go on for literally, 10, 15 minutes talking about this. So much new news even happened today. Literally right before we went live, Joe Biden actually announced that he's going to tap Vice President Kamala Harris to lead the administration's efforts to strengthen national voting rights. So he's making it his effort. He also calls the Republicans' efforts in the different states where they're doing these different voting laws and restrictions, he calls them un-American. He also says that he's going to fight like heck with every tool at his disposal to pass the For the People Act, as well as the John Lewis Voting Act as well. So, I mean, so much to talk about. I love that Joe Biden is stepping in, taking this very serious, and noting that this is something that's very important, putting it at the top of his list and following through on his promises.
Yeah, if you think about the numbers, you look at it, let's see, Texas has 49 different bills, Arizona 23 different bills, Georgia 24. I can't even keep up, soulmate, so just try and keep up with us as we guide you through this. At the end of the day, I'll sum it up for you. Everyone should have their right to vote. They encourage people to go out and vote. But when things doesn't go their way, talking about the Republicans, all of a sudden they want to try and make it more difficult. They want to make it harder for us to continue to move forward and utilize our right to vote. This is disgusting in so many ways, because it's like, if we can't beat them the right way, then let's go ahead and switch and make up our own rules. I mean, it makes no sense at all. None. But we'll definitely keep you posted on that. But moving on, 11 employees with the Texas Sheriff's Office have been fired and 6 others suspended following the February death of an inmate who was hit multiple times in the head by detention officers. Harris County Sheriff Ed Gonzalez said medical examiners had ruled Jakari Simmons' death a homicide from injuries to his head. A 3-month internal affairs investigation concluded Simmons had 2 fights with detention officers on February 16th when the jail had lost power and water pressure during the state's deadly winter storm. Simmons, 23 years old, was evaluated by a doctor at a jail clinic and had a cut to his left eyebrow and an upper lip, but reported no pain. He was taken back to a cell, but officers failed to bring him back to the clinic for follow-up x-rays, according to Major Thomas Diaz, who led the internal affairs investigation. Houston police is still conducting a separate criminal investigation into Simmons' death. Again, these are men just taking advantage of the power that they have, right? Look, I know people that work in the Twin Towers here in downtown Los Angeles. When you have someone that's locked up, whether they're young or whether they're adults, they may say things to you, right? You have to have thick skin to be in this situation. But it gives you no right to beat this young man to death and then not follow up to try to make sure he's okay. It's like you just don't care. So I know there's more to it that's going to come out, and I'm looking forward to seeing what that is.
Yeah, I feel like firing him is definitely a step in the right direction, but I feel the same way that a lot of other people feel, is that these officers need to be charged for this murder, because when you fire him, you simply can say, oh, well, these are just 11, I think it was 11, right, Romeo? 11 bad apples, like they're doing with Chauvin, that he's just one bad apple in the police department, versus acknowledging that this is a systemically racist police department in total. And so that's why I also feel like we talk about this a lot on the show, different advocates voting for defunding the police and refunding the police and things of reforming, all of that, because it makes you feel hopeless to a certain extent, where it's like, okay, firing is still protecting him. He's still protected. If he's not gonna be charged, he's just fired, then you're still protecting him. So we need to find a way, whatever bill that is gonna be, to make the money, take away the power that these police officers have, because it's almost like if we can't do anything, we need to make them powerless.
Yeah, I know when he was booked on February 10th, he had no health issues at all when he was brought into there. So unfortunate.
We never really see an instance where 11 employees are fired. And so that immediately says, whoa, there's a story here. And so we are absolutely going to keep digging and keep bringing you the latest, specifically in this instance.
Yes, digging we are going to do, Brooke. I love that. So President Biden issued a proclamation on Monday commemorating the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa race massacre, in which a mob of white attackers killed hundreds of black Americans and burned down several blocks of what was referred to as Black Wall Street. Biden declared Monday to be a day of remembrance 100 years after the 1921 Tulsa race massacre, to commemorate the horrific racist attack. The federal government must reckon with and acknowledge the role that it has played in stripping wealth and opportunity from black communities, he added. According to several news sources, Biden traveled to Tulsa today to meet with survivors of the Tulsa race massacre and delivered further remarks about the 100th anniversary. Another story that we can talk on and on and on about. I hope the Soulmates got a chance to watch our special yesterday. That was just powerful, magical, was so amazing. But just to add on that, President Biden, in the additional words, he did go to meet with these survivors, like I said. And so in that, one of his speeches, he made it known that I'm the first U.S. president to acknowledge the Tulsa race massacre. He made that known. Like, he wanted you to know that this is the first time that a U.S. president has acknowledged that. He also went on to say that this was not a riot. This was a massacre. He also adds one really important thing that I want to just add in here. He says, for much too long, the history of what took place was told in silence. He said it was cloaked in darkness, but then he says, but just because the history is silent, it doesn't mean that it did not take place. While darkness can hide much, it erases nothing. I can go on and on and on. He had a very powerful speech. If you get a chance, just go online and check it out. And I also read that Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton were in the crowd, and about 200 people were in attendance of that speech. But I just love everything that Biden is doing right now. He is really for the people, and I just want to continue to see him just, keeping his foot on the gas, everything that is important to our community, because I just love to see it.
Yeah, it's a big win, right? That one, that he's there. Two, that, I think social media, which I'm not a huge fan of all the time, but it spread the word. It got people intrigued, want to learn more. I talked to my sister today, and she was like, I did not know the whole story. Right. But thanks to you guys, especially you had yesterday with people putting on social media, it made me dig deeper into it. And, you coming from that area, like, yes. Did they ever really recover, or what is the energy like there, And
that's so interesting, because I think that you asked me that, because I think that's another part of this conversation. People are ecstatic, right, to feel acknowledged, but also there's a generational wealth that's been lost and never really been repaid. Never at all. And a state commission, NBC, on that note, reported a state commission in 2001 found that the damages to Greenwood in 1921 would equal nearly $30 million. However, no reparations have been paid to survivors or their descendants. No people, no entities have been held criminally liable. Yeah. Also, just to note, Tulsa is still a pretty largely segregated city. North Tulsa is still predominantly black, and obviously the rest of the city is still predominantly white. And I think that, you know, there's different stories, like stories about food deserts, stories about neighborhoods in Tulsa largely without grocery stores, only having dollar stores. This city council having to step in to protect people with the ability to have be in close proximity to fruits and fresh fruits and vegetables and things like that. And so it's more needed than just talking about it.
Gotcha.
But on that note, just one more thing, and then we'll move on, because I think it's also something interesting that you said. You talked about the fact that your sister was saying, you know, I never learned about this. There's an article in the Washington Post. I'm going to link to it on Twitter, because I just think all of us should really know about this. And it breaks down a long list of race massacres since the 1800s across our country where black people were slaughtered that you didn't learn about in history class, along with Tulsa, because we have, and thankfully, you know, put a lot of attention on, you know, this horrible aspect of American history that we don't learn about in school, but there are more. And you know what I mean? And thankfully we have this platform here that we can continue to talk about them, but there are so many more.
Yeah.
All right, we do have an update to an important story we've been following here on FOXSOUL's Black Report regarding the creator of the New York Times 1619 Project and the reasons why she hasn't been granted tenure at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Nicole Hannah-Jones now says she's considering legal action against UNC. Hannah-Jones released a statement saying, I had no desire to bring turmoil or a political firestorm to the university that I love, but I am obligated to fight back against a wave of anti-democratic suppression that seeks to prohibit the free exchange of ideas, silence black voices, and chill free speech. Last month, UNC announced the Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist would join the university's Hussman Journalism School as the Knight Chair in Race and Investigative Journalism. But, of course, despite the prestigious appointment, the UNC Chapel Hill Board of Trustees did not offer her a tenured position. An aspect of this being talked about today, an article written by a top donor to UNC's journalism school, arguing against tenure for Hannah-Jones because, and this is a quote, her writing denigrates the courageous efforts of many white Americans. This is what's in the article of this top donor. Also, Hannah-Jones pointed out an excerpt, and I'm going to read it. Long before Nicole Hannah-Jones won her Pulitzer Prize, courageous white Southerners risked their lives standing up for the rights of blacks were winning Pulitzer Prizes too. So obviously Nicole Hannah-Jones pointed out that, one, this is a ridiculous thing that has nothing to do with her own credentials, and also she herself has long talked about the importance of those who came before her, black and white. But the point here is that that top donor got his way.
You know, Brooke, I'm not sure if we were reading the same story, because I was going to bring up something very, very similar. Like you said, this is all of this commotion is over the Hussman School of Journalism. So when we initially broke the story, a lot of us, our commentary was, hey, there were so many people. There were petitions that were created for her. There were so many people, staff members at the UNC School of Journalism that were in agreement to having her. It seemed like everyone wanted her, right? So it didn't make sense to me as to what is the holdup, right? So like Brooke said, but then also a new email came to light this today that showed the opposition actually came from Hussman himself. So the opposition started at the top. So we're wondering, why do all these people love her? Who's opposing, right? Came from top. He says, I worry about the controversy of tying the UNC Journalism School to the 1619 Project. This is his words. He said, then he named a few historians that he thought would be better over Jones. Then he says, these historians, to me, appear to be pushing to find the true historical facts. And then he also says that it seems like, she might be pushing an agenda and, manipulating historical facts to support it. And I'm just like, it really just ties back into what we were just talking about the Tulsa race massacre, right? So we whitewash everything for our school children in high school and college. So then they grow up. And if you have a grandfather that was back in the day that, just wants to tell your grandfather or grandmother, you end up growing up and know nothing about it. You have white children that know nothing about what really happened in slavery times in 1921. And so it just really just all goes back into, these top whatevers wanting to make sure that school children don't know the true facts. And so just back to what Biden is saying, like he wants to make sure the facts come to light. So hopefully she gets that tenure because, it's definitely needed.
Definitely. All right, well, today marks the beginning of Pride Month, and LGBTQ groups say they plan on drawing attention this year to the anti-transgender bills making their way through state legislators across the country. GOP-backed measures targeting transgender people have picked up steam in recent months, ranging from bills banning transgender girls from participating in girls' sports to legislation prohibiting gender-affirming medical care for transgender minors. By HRC's tally, 250 anti-LGBTQ bills have been introduced in state legislators this year, including at least 35 blocking transgender youth from accessing gender-affirming care. Now, here's a couple things we do know. We know that President Biden has issued an official proclamation recognizing Pride Month. Donald Trump never did that. He did have a tweet like in 2019, but he never officially did that. And it's important everyone is treated equally and get the same respect. We do know that. Republicans, the ones that are trying to go ahead and take away the voting rights, right? Those are the ones, the lawmakers trying to push the bill where doctors who provide treatment for minors would face many as 10 years in prison. Some people are for that, some people are against that. So again, it's about bringing attention to the front and letting people know what is right and what needs to be done.